Welcome everyone and Happy New Year. I don't know whether you can still say that on the 11th of January, but it's our first Stewarts Soundbites of the year, so I think we're all right. We're safe on that one. And I'm delighted to be kicking off this year with this really, if I do say so on your behalf, like really good episode coming up, because we're talking about kind of hidden services. We called it hidden services, and we'll get into that after a brain injury. And we talk. I mean, how long have we spent talking about this on the phone, Lee, before today? Loads of time. I don't know how we're going to do it in 15 minutes, but we're going to try. And we'll get the key points across to everyone. So first of all, most importantly, by way of introduction, I'm here with Lee Vandenborn today. So grateful to you, Lee, for coming and joining us. Lee's at the helm of an organisation, a social enterprise called Tomorrow's Hope. And Lee, I was saying to Lee before we started, it would be easier for me to tell you what Lee doesn't do because there are just so many. The services that Tomorrow's Hope provides are just huge, but benefits assessments right up to tribunal. You do tribunals and everything, Lee, don't you? And helping people with basically families and people who've sustained significant injuries. And you do family support sessions, you do health checks, you do social prescribing, and you do lots of work within health and social care guidelines, but you're not appointed by a local authority, so you've got more time with people and you've got more flexibility. And Lee offers services to people with litigation, people without litigation on a pro bono basis. He does it all. So we're going to tap into some of the knowledge, because how you started out in Tomorrow's Hope, which is the most interesting thing, is you started out by thinking to yourself, actually, there's just so many gaps in services. And you set up the company, the social enterprise, to try and kind of tackle that. So in the context, I've just blabbed on for like 3 minutes of our time. I'm so sorry, Lee. So in the context of what we're talking about today, we're thinking about kind of what people can access. And to start us off, I wanted to go back a stage, as opposed to looking at when people have injuries or sustain injuries or have a massive kind of health trauma. We've got the NHS in crisis. We've got lots of people without litigation claims. We've got people who have litigation claims, but liability is an issue and there's no money there at all. So at the point where they're being discharged or in hospital and just about to be discharged, what people with traumatic brain injury specifically, I suppose, but also people, others who've been impacted, what is available to people?
So normally when people are discharged from hospital, it's normally a planned safe discharge. However, the NHS is under a lot of pressure. So at the point of discharge, it's mainly just getting to a point where you can survive. So it's to a point where if you can manage a few stairs, if you can manage to get to the toilet, if not, if you've got a downstairs toilet, if you can have a commode, if you can have a bed downstairs if you can't manage stairs. So it's just getting you to a point where you're not in hospital anymore. And then what happens is after that, it's trying to get community services involved. So what should happen upon discharge is that you're referred into physio, you've referred into OTs, occupational therapists, adult social services, community district nurses, if needs be, depending on the level of the injury and what's happened, neuropsychology or neurological rehabilitation services. It's dependent on what is needed. But again, it's also very much on the pressure on the NHS is whether them referrals actually get made. That's the problem.
And people don't know if they've not been referred for some. Do you know what I mean? People don't know if they haven't been referred for something. It's so hard, isn't it? And you see people in those kind of really early stages typically, don't you, like kind of dischargey time. And what are kind of the most, what are the issues that you see coming up again and again? What questions are people asking you? What problems do they have upon discharge?
It seems to be the same questions on things like what happens now? Where do we go from here? A lot of people, when they've been discharged, they feel like they're in limbo. that's not just the individual that's had the injury, it's the family members. They've gone from maybe a family member that's been working to now not able to work, or even if they wasn't working when they had the injury, to normally a stable lifestyle to now where everything's completely blown up. The whole life is blown up and it's changed. And it's, what do we do? Where do we go from here? And what support's out there? Because discharge from hospital, and if referrals haven't been made, if they are the unlucky few, it's, well, what now? You know, they've not been informed of anything. They've got the discharge paperwork, and I'll speak to your GP.
Yeah.
But then the GP's kind of at a loss because nothing's really been explained to them. So it's the same question again: is what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely.
What help is there?
Yeah, and what struck me whenever I was looking at your website, Lee, and doing some low-key stalking of all of your services and things, was this kind of holistic approach to things, because it strikes me people are discharged from hospital, they're saying kind of, where do we go, what do we do, without even, and of course people naturally deal with their most immediate problems, don't they? They think, oh God, you know, I've got the mortgage to pay, or, you know, whatever is most pressing on their mind. But there are normally a whole like kind of plethora of issues. So I saw on your website there was kind of a lot of focus on kind of a holistic approach to assessing need and accessing services. You know, how important is that at an early stage, and how far does that extend?
So it's really important to look at everything surrounding the person, and not just the person, but the family as a whole, so the household. An injury just doesn't just affect that person, it affects the whole family. So by the family, it can be the household, it can be parents, it can be partners, and can be brothers and sisters. But the holistic view is to look at the bigger picture. So you don't just look at one thing. So if someone says, well, yeah, but I've not been working, my finances are a mess, it's also looking at, okay, it might not be just the finances, it's the physical health then, it's mental health, it's emotional impact, it's the social impact, because they're not socialising as much. You know, they're not engaging with community as much. It's also spiritual. Do they have any religious aspects that they're not able to attend anymore? But it's also focusing on their wellness and not just the illness or condition. Yeah. So it's also giving a positive in there and focusing on what they can do and where their life is at, and giving a positive towards the negative, and reinforcing what's good. Yeah. And it extends to the whole family, really, that is involved to support them as a unit.
Yeah, and this holistic approach kind of is something that we see case managers deal with, you know, at early stages when they're involved in litigation cases, and look at all these different aspects of somebody's life. But as we said, there's so many people without litigation claims, or where there's no funding available. So I want to get down to the meat of what we're talking about today, the $1 million question, which is you know, what services are out there that maybe we don't have on our radar, that we don't know about, that are really helpful. And I thought the easiest way to do this was kind of break it down into kind of finances and healthcare and clinical services. So can we start, Lee, with finances? And by the way, everyone watching, I'll make sure that on the recording I'll link in websites and stuff and sources of information. And if anyone wants them by email, you know, just contact me afterwards. But let's start with finances, Lee.
So finances, there's always us, where we support people with benefit applications from start to finish, doing enhanced benefit checks to check benefit entitlements. There are local welfare rights agencies, but that is very much dependent on the area that you live in. And it's also dependent on their time slots and allocations. So that's some like Citizens Advice Bureau. but this is not to diminish citizens' advice, because they do a good job, but at the same time, when you go in and you ask about benefit applications, they will only look at mainly just one injury or illness at a time.
Yeah.
And they are restricted to them time slots. So maybe you only get an hour with the person. And sometimes it can take up to 2 hours to complete a benefit application.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind. But there is website, there is Citizens Advice website that you can look on, and that will tell you all, the benefit entitlements. Then there's Turn to Us, which is a charity.
Turn to Us.
Turn to Us, yeah. And that's an online charity, and basically they have all the benefit entitlements on there, and they also have registered intermediaries. So like myself, I'm a registered intermediary and I'm on there as well. So you can find other social enterprises that may be offering financial capability or welfare rights. So it's always good to look on there as well.
And do the intermediaries, Lee, what's the job of the intermediaries then, to help with applications and support?
So it's just basically to offer advice on maybe benefit entitlements.
Got you.
So they may not offer support with applications.
Yeah.
Or it will just be for basically welfare rights. So what you could be entitled to going forward.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of the Citizens Advice Bureaus are listed on there as well, as like advice agencies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of their advisors are listed on there as well.
Okay.
Because you have to be registered as an advisory to be listed on there. So they're the main ones for finances, really.
Okay, great. And then kind of healthcare stuff, like.
Yeah, so healthcare.
Broad umbrella, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So you do have things such as continuing healthcare, which are budgets through the NHS, which you can apply for. You do have agencies that can do that application alongside with you. So again, we support them applications. We can do that application, liaise with the GP. Mm-hmm. You can get adult social services to support that application as well with a referral. That's if you get a social worker through adult social services.
And can you ask for that, like, or is that something that's kind of already appointed?
So you can ask for that. Sometimes it's done for like rehab code and rehab prescription. So you can get it through that. It's just very much dependent on funding as well, local authority fundings and things like that. You get the other healthcare, you get funding from local commissioning groups, so CCGs. Yeah. They have their own pots of funding as well. So personal health budgets, you can get through them. But again, that's dependent on funding in the area. You can get rehab prescriptions through the consultants, which family members, how do we get that? If you've still got a consultant or you're aware of the consultant after discharge, you can request possible rehab prescription. Even after discharge, it can still be requested at a later date.
Because I mean, we just don't see them that well. In my experience, I don't see them that much actually. And I didn't know that you could specifically request a rehab prescription. And then, if you get that, Lee, where do you go with that to? Wherever. So
the consultant can suggest it might be for neuropsychology, it could be for extended physiotherapy, it could be for a neuro rehab unit, for instance. It would be dependent on what the consultant suggests on that rehab prescription. It could just be extended physio.
Yeah.
But sometimes that bypasses NHS services as well. So it might be, okay, if we haven't got allocation to NHS services, then we'll try and get you a personal health budget to try and speed it along a bit, because you do have a rehab prescription. So it's almost like it becomes a priority at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's needed within a certain period of time.
And the personal health budget is really interesting to me, and I think it's possibly something that's underused as well. But does that come, sorry, you have to forgive me asking these questions, but is that distinct from local authority funding, or does that come from the same?
So the personal health budget normally comes direct from NHS.
From NHS, yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes it's controlled by clinical commissioning groups as well. So clinical commissioning groups will have their own pot of funding as well for personal health budgets for the local authority area. Yeah. So it depends which area you live in and who controls that pot of funding.
And then can you apply for local authority input alongside that then?
Yeah, so there's a personal health budget and then there's a personal budget.
Right, just to make things straightforward.
Yeah, so that one just removes the health. So the personal budget, that's controlled by local authority.
Right.
And that's to pay for social care needs, so such as if you need additional carer, support worker, or you can even have it paid direct to yourself as direct payments, and you can hire a personal assistant.
Yeah.
And you become an employer at that point, so you have a personal budget.
Yeah. Got you. Okay. And I did a soundbite on this. Anyone that wants to know a bit more about the local authority funding and the eligibility criteria, I did a soundbite on this before, which is on the website. If you want a link, let me know. We actually have a question that I want to just touch upon, which is from Ashley, which says, are your services available countrywide or just locally basedly? Let you answer that.
Yeah, countrywide, all across everywhere really.
You're just going to see that inbox like, ooh. And finally, I know we're running out of time, but I think this is important, and I did talk on at the start. So the clinical kind of side of things.
Yeah. So there's mental health support services. So there's lots of charities across the UK that do offer clinical services for mental health as well. So first off, the charities I'm going to mention aren't clinical, but they have direct input to clinical services. So these offer mental health support. So there's Men in Sheds. They started off offering by tackling loneliness and isolation, but however they decided, they started seeing more people that actually had mental health needs as well. Yeah. Anxiety, depression, and start to see more people and men with brain injuries as well.
Yeah. And is that just for men in
so
sheds?
Men in Sheds is just for men.
Got you.
However, then they're national as well. But they have direct input to clinical services as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got Fit Mums. They started off by just doing activities, so walking and speed walking, things like that. But then they started seeing a lot of mums that also had anxiety, depression. They started seeing a lot of women with brain injuries as well. So then they started opening their doors, so to speak, and okay, well, we need access to mental health support services as well. So they link in with clinical support services as well. And that's just for women.
Got you. Okay.
Then you've got Andy's Man's Club. That's national as well.
Andy's Man's Club. I'm gonna do a crib sheet after this. Actually, I'm gonna do a crib sheet for everyone. So if you want it, I'll do it and I'll put it online for you. Links.
And then the last one is Shout, which I had a great conversation with someone the other day about this. I sent you the email regarding it. They're national, and basically just send a text message to a number, and one of their team members will contact you straight back, and they'll offer advice and support over the phone, and they have direct input to emergency clinical services within every region throughout the UK.
Yeah. And
not just UK, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales as well.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of these organisations, and there's a degree of collaboration, isn't there, and feeding into NHS, and it's always good to, even though on the face of it you think, oh, it's a mental health charity and we'll just go along for a chat and stuff, actually there's a lot more behind some of these organisations and links with NHS services as well. So it's worth looking into. So I did have more questions for you, but we've gone over time. What I'll do is, as I say, I'll put together a kind of outline of the sources that we've referred to today and links, and I'll make that available on some kind of, someone's going to have to help me with this, some kind of document that we can post online and can be available as a kind of a supplement to this episode. But and if anyone has trouble finding it or wants information quicker or whatever, please just contact me. On the recording, Lee's website details will be on there, but you can just Google it these days, and have a look. And Lee's got a great Twitter as well, Tomorrow's Hope on Twitter. So thank you very much, Lee. I could have kept you here all day, squeezing you for every bit of information I could, but I'm really grateful to you for coming along, and
thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure, and thank you everyone else for taking the time to join us and watch. And any questions arising from today, please just email them to me and I'll get in touch with Lee and we'll try to provide an answer. But thank you so much, and we'll see you again next month for the next episode. Thanks, Lee. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.